go ahead and move on to our next story. Our next story is something that popped up on my radar just because the title sounded interesting. I dug a little more into it. I was like, it was something I didn't know about. What happened was I saw the phrase, "the cure for insomnia." That was all that I saw. It is a movie that lasts 87 hours. It takes 3 days and 15 hours to watch the whole movie. The Cure for Insomnia, at the time in 1987, was the world's longest film. It has no plot. It's just a recording of a guy, a poet named L.D. Groban, reading his 4,080-page poem, A Cure for Insomnia. And then in intercut with this guy reading this poem, there are clips of heavy metal music, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and then hardcore porn. I mean, that would keep you up, I guess, if you're starting to fall asleep and the heavy metal music is loud enough. I don't know, 3 days is a long time to stay awake. But yeah, so I was like, that's interesting. Now, the thing is, the movie was shown apparently one time, may have been shown more, but there's no copy of it in existence today. You can't get it on DVD, there's no video copy of it, anything. It's just something that people saw and they experienced, and then it went away. You know, and that's interesting because when we have the ability to go back and rewatch stuff, it does in a way kind of diminish it. I remember there used to be a show on television called Cop Rock back in the 80s. I think it was like 86 or something like that, 87. And it was like imagine CSI, but a musical, is how it was. And it only lasted one season. You can get it today on DVD, but back then that was science fiction. You watched the television show and that was it. Unless you had a VCR, which really only more wealthy people had VCRs and was recording stuff, even back then. Not wealthy like Bill Gates wealthy, but you had to have a good amount of money. We had a VCR, but I don't think we were recording stuff off of television. There's just too much television to consume. What we're going to do, have a whole library of video cassettes. And I remember one day I was watching, I thought the show was stupid. I was a little kid, I was probably like 11. And I asked my dad, I go, why do you like this show? And he said, there's something about a song you know you'll only hear one time. And that was the truth back then. There wasn't a soundtrack for the show. The show simply existed at that time. Now, if it was a big hit, they may have had a soundtrack and stuff like that. But television shows weren't being released on VHS that I know of. There may have been like specials, like the Charlie Brown special, Simpsons Christmas special, things like that. But for my father, watching that show, that was the only time he'd ever hear that song in his entire life. So there is something interesting about media we can only consume once and then it's gone. It used to be the same thing before VHS. You went to go see Star Wars at the theater. Like you walked out of there and you said, whoa, that was amazing. You were never going to be able to take it home and watch it whenever you wanted to. And once the movie left the theater, that was it. It was gone. So there is something about media, something magical about media we can only consume one time. But so that was the longest film of the time in 1987. There are 5 movies now that are longer than that. Longer than 3 days and 15 hours. Now, I do have to say, while I was researching this topic, I was watching, in a bizarre sense of irony, I was watching a movie called Slaughter Claus, about a killer Santa Claus, obviously. It was probably one of the worst films I've seen, and I'm a collector of bad films. I love them. That's probably my favorite form of movie, is an unintentionally bad film. Yes, I've seen The Room, and yes, there are multiple movies far, far worse than The Room. Slaughter Claus is one of them. But Slaughter Claus, I'm watching this movie about this killer Santa Claus, just painfully bad editing. There's no plot. The whole movie's maybe an hour long, but it felt like it was 3 days and 15 hours. And this is what I came across. 5th longest film was 3 days, 23 hours. It's just a picture of a photograph, and there's a boy riding a bicycle, a street, a house, garage, and over time the image changes. But it changes over the course of 3 days and 23 hours, so the shift of the movement is imperceptible to the human eye. Fascinating. 4 was probably the weirdest of them. 4th longest movie was called Untitled Number 125 Hickory. That movie's 5 days long. It is a 6-minute, 30-second clip from the movie The Wizard of Oz. It says, from the moment the viewer sees the tornado until Dorothy meets Glinda the Good Witch. It's that 6-minute and 30-second clip of the movie stretched out for 5 days. And they actually have clips of it online, like 15-minute clips at a time. It's really just a tone. You see like a blurry image and it's like... And I think he actually did take that clip and spread it out. And apparently the 5 days, the reason why it's that long is that's in real time how long Dorothy spent in Oz. So that's why it's spread out that long. Third longest movie is Beijing, 2003. It's 6 days, 6 hours. It's just a car driving around Beijing. Okay, that's a little bit of a letdown after the first two bizarre entries. Number 2, Modern Times Forever. This one was interesting. It's 10 days long. And the movie was projected on the side of a building called the Storo Enso headquarters in Helsinki. And the movie is projected on the side of the building, and what the movie is, it's what would happen to that building, how it would decay over the next few thousand years. So you're looking at the building, and over the course of 10 days, the film would change, so you'd start to see like window panes fall out, and the roof would start to kind of break down, and it just like what would happen to that building over the next few thousand years. That's an interesting concept. One person said, though, why does it have to be 10 days? Couldn't you then speed the process up and make it last only 1 day and just make it look quicker? But I think, again, it was a work of art to do that. And the longest movie blows all those away. So Modern Times was 10 days. Modern Times Forever was 10 days. This movie was 35 days and 17 hours to watch the whole thing. It's called Logistics. It was these filmmakers who said, you know what, we're going to follow the production cycle of a pedometer in reverse chronological order. So they went from it being shipped to they open up the package and they find the pedometer that they ordered, and then they travel back all the way to see the pieces being sourced to make it at the manufacturer. It's all shot in real time. They open the package up and then they follow it back. The whole process it would take to make the pedometer all the way back to the factory in Shenzhen, which I believe is in China. Again, these are works of art, really. I think I would, if out of all of these, the Modern Times Forever would be one that I would want to see at least in bits and chunks, watching the decay of the building, because that's fascinating. But yeah, they're just works of art more than anything else. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.